the temptation to take something to take the edge off it for a bit increases sort of incrementally. And it's not just about alcohol, because one of the parts of depression I find is just having no energy. You just want to sleep all the time, and just really simple things become really problematic. And then, strangely enough, that's then I've been thinking about nicotine again, having,
Mm.
quit nicotine for so long, because it's just you want to take something to just give you a lift so that you can get out of bed and sort of start the day.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that I've been kind of grappling with recently is, at the end of the day, if you want a genuine fix to this kind of thing, there isn't a quick one. The things that I've been kind of grappling with recently is, at the end of the day, if you want a genuine fix to this kind of thing, there isn't a quick one. There isn't, short of going out and buying some fentanyl or something, you've got to contact the doctor, you've got to be put on a course of antidepressants, which may or may not work, and then you have to report back to them and have it tweaked. But it's a long-term process.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Well, we are just trained into defaulting to all those things you said, William. And I think it's yeah, like we always talk about it on here, like the just being with ourselves, like noticing perhaps the patterns of thinking or whatever that aren't helpful, but just being like things unfold the way that they unfold. Like for me, for whatever reason, it was always, I don't know, because we're all kind of, we all have our idiosyncrasies, don't we? In this way, it was acute anxiety for me. When I was a teen, I had mad OCD, and I know that as I take that trip kind of down the mountain, sometimes that's the kind of stuff that can show up for me, and so but I now know that if I don't do the things I used to do, I don't get caught in other feedback loops that aren't helpful, like you say. Um,
Mhm.
and like an insight or something that shifts it. What is it that makes the clouds part around it? And it's kind of mysterious, right? But just understanding that we do have a talk about a psychological immune system a lot in the work that we do, but it's kind of knowing that in order for that to kick in order for us to have the insight, in order for that to shift, it's the courage to just not keep reaching for the things we've always reached for. And also forgiveness if people find themselves in a situation where they do reach for those things, because judgment on ourselves for doing that thing that we've been trained into isn't helpful either, right? And then we just get caught up in that cycle too. But thanks for talking about it, man. And I know, like, it's I think there's this projection that people make, which is if I stop drinking, then everything will be solved. And we've openly spoken against that. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we made some content which was called Life Goes On, which is let's because the danger of having that idea is very often people experience what, quote unquote pink cloud, or they feel good for or whatever. And then at some point they go through an experience like you're having, or, whatever it might be. And then they interpret that, in a more, I'm trying to think how to put it, but it seems almost like more of a thing to struggle because they've had this idea that would never happen again. Or
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
we want to get
they've been
clear about
missold
that.
sobriety, haven't they? Yeah, it's supposed to be good,
Yeah.
and it is. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
So
there's a lot of
yeah,
judgment about it, like a lot of judgment, and especially
yeah.
if you're far away. Like I always tell the story. I just a couple of years ago, I was having like just a shit month, and I was sitting at my desk, and I was like, "Well, I could buy a bottle of scotch," and I started laughing at myself because it was, at that point, been what, like 8 years, but like that's normal. And I
Mm.
think like talking about that and talking about the fact that those thoughts come up and that like it doesn't mean, to your point, Sam, that life keeps lifing. Like it doesn't mean that like you're never going to think about it again, but it's how you kind of deal with it and how you navigate it that changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think this is one of the reasons why I think community, whatever the community is so important. Because if you are, earlier on I was talking about that kind of that scoop perspective of, you get kind of very in your own stuff. It's really captivating, and that can keep you, in an experience for much longer. But opening yourself up and talking about things in whatever community. I mean, obviously we're biased because we have a wonderful live present and sober community, but it's not necessarily going to mean that whatever's presenting itself is going to shift immediately, but it will help you to take perspective. It's been extraordinary. I don't know, this is my kind of I think there's some planetary shit going on right now. There's some really big things happening. So I've had at least three people in coaching over the last couple of weeks, and the order of magnitude of the things that they are circumstantially, the things that they're dealing with in their lives. I mean, the most, I guess what we could say that like the worst things that you could imagine.
Mm,
And every individual that I have in my mind right now, they're not drinking.
mm,
Are they suffering? Are they experiencing pain? Yes. And the wonderful thing in conversation with each of them is they will do that thing where we oscillate from like the kind of like the ordinary mind stuff of like, oh, I can't cope with this, the resistance, I want this to end. And and then they'll have a moment, even if it's a glimpse of lucidity and clarity, and like, I know this is going to pass. I know that I can stay with myself. So a community to me is really important because one, when you're in the thick of it, you've got people around you for support and care and love in a non-judgmental space. And also what it does for the people around you when you can be vulnerable like that is people wherever they're at in their own story can look at you and go, shit, like you what so you're dealing with the bereavement of a child and yet you can remain alcohol free or somewhat alcohol free. God, that's amazing. Like, wow, like that's actually possible. So I think that the community aspect, the being connected to something, the having of the conversations is so important, so hugely important.
I'm sort of really rational about things, and I haven't quite worked out why it helps so much, but it's so helpful to speak to people. They might not have any solutions, but they've
Yeah.
just experienced what you've experienced. And just to know that there's a human being out there that's felt like this, just
Mm,
it helps so massively. Well,
mm,
one of the things I found, and in fact, I kind of knew it from before, but yesterday I was really struggling. Went into the office. I did it deliberately because when you speak to the doctor and sort of describe how you're feeling, they say, "Oh, do you want to be signed off from work?" And I've always said no because I know for a fact, fortunately, because of my job, I have to use my brain for it. So if I'm just sitting around, I'm just really, really low. But getting into the office and having to open an email and read it and think about it and how am I going to deal with this? Just it's enough to doesn't really solve anything, but just while my mind is taken up with whatever problem I'm dealing with, I'm not kind of I don't know if it's making sense, but I'm not just in
yeah.
that spiral of miserable thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never have worked that out if I'd been drinking because I'd be trying to drink my way through it. I'd be in no fit state to do work. And if I was there, I wouldn't be able to come up with any solutions to anything.